Hello, welcome to Sound Off with System 1. I'm your host, Krista Kornchuk, and I'm here today with our panel of experts to discuss your biggest interview and resume questions. That means if you're tuning in live, you can send us your most pressing job search related questions and we'll answer as many as possible. Before we get started, here are a few words about System 1. System 1 is a leading provider of specialized, highly technical outsourced services and workforce solutions to critical infrastructure, technology, life science, and government sectors, putting more than 650 employees and 9,000 contractors to work in the United States, Canada, and the UK. As you're tuning in today, please join us in the comments. Our marketing team will be monitoring them. Let us know where you're joining from and which industry you work in. And as I said before, this is a live Q&A, so make sure you send in your questions. Before we get started with those questions, I'm going to have our panel of experts introduce themselves. They're also going to be sharing a hot job, which you can view by scanning the QR code or by visiting jobs.system1.com. Michaela, we'll start with you.
Hi everyone. Happy Friday. My name is Michaela. I'm an IT recruiter for System 1. I'm based out of Orlando, Florida, but recruit worldwide. My hot job for this week is an ERP data engineer out of St. Louis. A few things that we are looking for is an Azure data engineer. It's for a large manufacturing company in St. Louis. Really specifically looking for that Azure data stack.
Hi, my name is Chandra Fan, and I am a Senior Business Development Manager here in the Greater Houston area, and I've been with System 1 for a few years now. Our hot job is based just outside of Austin. We are looking for a construction manager with a data center experience to oversee planning, coordination, and the execution of a large-scale data center construction project. You will need over 8 years construction experience with at least 3 of those being mission critical or data center projects. We are looking for someone who has experience in hyperscale or co-location data center experience and at least 50 megawatts experience with that.
And my name's Dennis Hurley, and I'm based out of Cincinnati, Ohio with Malta IT. And my hot job today is an Infor specialist or business applications manager for a client here in Cincinnati. The job is on site, and that is one of the probably the challenges. So if you have Infor background, we would welcome the opportunity to speak with you. This person is going to be responsible for implementing Infor, doing some configuration and traditional applications management. And the pay is up to about $130,000.
Fantastic. Make sure you connect with our recruiters if you're interested in any of these roles. Their profiles are in the comments. Again, you can view all of their jobs by visiting jobs.system1.com. We encourage you to send in your comments for our experts. Please send those in right away and we'll get to answering them. Next, I'm going to have our panel introduce a tip that they have been sharing with their candidates, that their candidates have been benefiting from. So Michaela, we'll start with you.
Yeah, great question. So for IT specifically, my pro tip for candidates that are open to work is customizing your resume. I know it might sound like a lot, but just small tweaks to your resume that match the job that you're applying for will really boost your chances of getting noticed in the application system.
Great answer, Michaela. Mine kind of feeds into that as well. While I don't specifically speak with candidates directly for most of the time, I do interface with the clients. So what they want to see is how you are going to quantify your impact. There are many people who have the same technical skills. They're stating the same qualifications on their resume. So if you can include numbers, percentages, metrics, that is going to grab their attention, and add that in right before underneath the job description. Go ahead and put it directly underneath there and then add in what skills you did in that job.
Those are definitely great tips and ones that I run into as well too. My hot tip right now would be be careful on applying using job boards. Indeed, and some of those other larger type job boards, and this isn't trying to take a cheap shot at any of them, they do serve a purpose. Sometimes you can quickly get lost in the mix. Try to reach out to a recruiter. Try to find out who actually is posting the job. Especially if it's through us, we are all tagged on our jobs. So reach directly out to us. Use platforms like LinkedIn. They are great for finding jobs, especially Indeed, but they're not always the best on submitting your resume through. So if you can find a personal avenue via a recruiter, it tends to get your resume noticed a little bit faster, and you get a little less lost in the mix of the other hundreds of resumes or thousands of resumes a company may receive, kind of playing off that same thing that they're seeing the same exact data on resumes of people with very similar skills. So what makes you stand out? One thing maybe is talking with one of the recruiters, such as ourselves or somebody internal to there, that you can actually start a conversation and really separate yourself or help them find your resume in that pile.
Absolutely. Yeah, using a recruiter is a huge asset in the job search. And that actually pivots into our first question that we're receiving from Allie. She wants to know, what is the right way and timing to follow up with a recruiter or hiring manager after an interview? Good question, Allie.
Yeah, that's a great question.
Go ahead.
Go for it. Go for it.
So I would say I would immediately go ahead and write your thank you note. First and foremost, you get out of that interview, the interview is still fresh in your mind, and you know what you discussed. So you can highlight what it is that you really enjoyed about your experience with the company, with the person who was interviewing you. Send that thank you note, and then you can follow up from there.
Yeah, that's that great point. Thank you notes are I think under a lot of people's radar, or people associate them with being cheesy or something like that. A lot of hiring managers tend to appreciate a quick note, a brief note, and hey, thank you, appreciating their time, appreciating the experience, and giving them that feedback. And usually, I tell people to ask during the interview, what does it look like when I would get, when I could possibly expect to hear back from you guys. And then if you start to encroach past that time, absolutely, by all means, reach back out. So if you haven't heard in, I wouldn't wait 48 hours, but I would say a week. If you haven't heard, reach back out, send a note, or make a phone call to the recruiter and just say, hey, I was just looking for a status update, excited about the opportunity.
Absolutely. We have some more questions coming in. We have a good question from Kathleen. How do you recommend crafting your message to that recruiter or hiring manager when you find it? You want to respect their time, but you also want to stand out. That's a really good question.
Yeah, I'll take that question or answer it first. I would recommend also how you craft your message. There's also great tools, AI tools that you can use to help yourself as well. I love to use ChatGPT to help me craft messages because you might not know exactly what to say or how to say it. And you can use platforms like that to help yourself make it more professional or casual or however you want to describe it. And you can tune it how you want to. That's something I would recommend and that I've been using a lot more is ChatGPT and some other AI tools that you might want to use.
I absolutely agree with you, Michaela. ChatGPT has become one of my very best friends in the past couple of years. And just an extra tidbit, with the ChatGPT, write yourself a rough draft message in ChatGPT and then say, make this more seamless or whatever you want it to sound like, more humble, more thankful. Just give it commands afterwards until you get to the message that you want to express.
Yeah, those are great points. ChatGPT, I think, is an amazing tool as long as we're using it as a tool. I think sometimes I also start to see messages that looks like it's only AI talking to me at times. So I always caution folks to, make sure that, use it as a framework and not necessarily your final message every time, or at least make sure there's some personalization in that message. And I like to suggest to folks, leave a call to action in your message to somebody with it being brief. Say, looking forward to talking to you, or hoping we can connect soon, or something along those lines, where there's a call to action for the other person to potentially be engaging with you. That I find sometimes helpful to prompt people to know to reply to your message.
Absolutely. Yeah, AI is a tool, but make sure it sounds authentic. And like you, as a content creator, I can guarantee that that's the key to success there. We're getting a lot of great questions coming in. I am going to take this one from Dusty. How can you tell on job boards like Indeed, ZipRecruiter, or LinkedIn if the company is legit or a scam? There are a lot of scams going around, so that's a good question, Dusty.
I'll kick off, I guess. So it's hard. There is a lot of nefarious actors working right now trying to get on job boards. I've heard personally some experiences where people apply for a job and may get an interview that same day, and may even get a job offer that same day. And sometimes, as candidates, they're stressed to get that next job. And, they're moving quickly and they think that it's the next opportunity. And, they might be trying to get that bank account information because they're like, oh, just go ahead and fill out your W-2. I mean, it is intimidating and can be a little bit scary. When it comes to Indeed, ZipRecruiter, LinkedIn, you should be able to find out who is this company, especially if the company is reaching out to you as opposed to you applying to them. If a company reaches out to you and says, who are they? You can do a pretty quick Google search or check, especially on LinkedIn. Indeed, I don't use ZipRecruiter as much, but usually there's a company profile that will give you all sorts of information about how long that company is and maybe legitimize it. And if it only has 1 to 2 employees, I would start to be careful. But you also just have to be conscientious as you're going through the process. If something is off, ask lots of questions. It doesn't necessarily mean it's off, but if your hunch is saying there might be a problem, really dig into it and pause before you ever give any personal information outside of your name and phone number and email address, no home address, no any of that stuff. I would just pause if you're feeling, I don't know about this.
Fantastic. Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I completely agree with all the statements. Like, just do your research into the company and see if it's legit, as Dennis said.
I actually have a personal experience with this. I recently came across. I was reaching out to a potential client because I saw that there was a job posting on Indeed. However, when I went to message the person who would be responsible for this job posting, I didn't receive a reply. However, I went to their website and they had stated on their website that someone had been posing as their company using their profiles to try to solicit candidates. So that's another way to just cross-reference between all of the different boards.
Absolutely. That's really common. And we have a job scams page on our System 1 site with a lot of really useful FAQs. So make sure you check that out if you haven't already. We have a good question from Jackie. I like this one. How do you recover if you blank on a question during an interview? I think we've all been there. Great question, Jackie.
I agree. I'll start. Hi, Jackie. So first things first, pause. Take a couple seconds. Interviews typically feel like time is just rushing at you. Take a deep breath and then think of the STAR method to try to help you get through. Think of a good situation. What was the task that you had to complete? How did you complete that task? And what was the result? So if you remember the STAR method, it can help guide you and slow you down. So you're not getting to a point where you are blanking out and not remembering your precise experience.
I like it. If anybody needs any reference on the STAR method, check out our last blog on the System 1 website or article on our LinkedIn page. And we actually broke down the STAR method because we had another expert panel member describe that. So we broke it down for all of you if you're interested. It's a fantastic tool. We have a question from Zach. What are your opinions on cover letters Do you want candidates to have short and sweet, such as 1 paragraph, 3 paragraphs, or fill up the entire page? Good question.
I'll take that one. Personally, for myself, I do like cover letters. I think they add a little bit of a synopsis of what you're going to see in the resume. I think 1 to 2 paragraphs is good, especially if you don't want to make it too lengthy because we're already going to look at your resume. But I do think cover letters they're not 100% necessary, but I personally, as a recruiter, like them because I like to get a little bit of an explanation before I read the resume.
Yes, I agree with Michaela. They're not always necessary. However, if you're asking for how many paragraphs, I think the 3-paragraph rule is a great rule to follow. You can go into the cover letter by explaining, hey, this is who I am. This is why I'm interested in the position. In the center section, describe what qualifies you for that position. And in the follow-up, do the call to action. I'm interested. When can I expect to hear back from you?
Yeah, I'm going to lean a little bit the different way here. I appreciate cover letters. I thoroughly do. And I know that they take a lot of work. My caution on cover letters is folks sometimes get into some analysis of paralysis as opposed to getting into applying for the jobs. And that may slow down your job search. So depending on where you're at in your job search, cover letters, I would reserve your time and energy for the jobs you've identified. So you're out on the job boards, and let's say you see 5 jobs that those are home run jobs. Those are the jobs I really want to go for. Take your time and do cover letters for them. But there may be 15 to 20 jobs that are also out there that are kind of aligned that you're interested in, that you may want to save your energy for in that application process, because I hear a lot of folks that sometimes, especially when the markets are funky like they are right now, as we're experiencing, some candidate fatigue. So I just caution for folks to save your energy on your cover letters for the jobs you really, really want, and not feel obligated to put one on every single job if it's kind of outside it and you're like, hey, I'm exploring it. Save your cover letters for targeted purposes would be my
I like that.
Well said. Well said. We have a question from Russell. What are key things ATS, that's Applicant Tracking Systems for people that don't know, are scanning for that they don't like about resumes? Is there a best format to use? Good question.
Take your picture off the resume unless you're a marketing person. And I say that in jest. I know it helps add. There's been a lot of stuff that's come out in the last couple of years using AI tools, resume builders that have offered a lot of creativity in the resume to make it look a little different and potentially pop or stand out. ATS doesn't understand pop or stand out. It just gets confused no matter what the applicant tracking system is. So when you start to incorporate graphics or colors and things like that, it seems to kick you a little bit faster out instead of necessarily looking at the words that you have in the resume. The other thing that I would also suggest is make sure you put your resumes in a readable format, that being PDF or Word. If it's a picture or anything like that, it cannot pick it up, it cannot scan it properly, and you're going to get missed.
One thing I'd like to add to that, Dennis, as a marketing professional, have a separate resume for the interview. So even if you are a marketing professional, just have a plain resume that you're submitting online for the applicant tracking systems. And then at the interview, bring the flashy one. That's what I did. And I think it works really well. We have a question from Salim. It's a little long. I'm going to shorten it. But if you have a contract position and it's not clearly stated on the resume, how should one handle that? Or it wasn't in the, I believe that's what we're hearing here. Am I misunderstanding that?
I'm trying to make sure I'm clear on it too. How should the candidate respond during the interview to a job?
We'll skip We can skip that one, Salim. If you want to come back to us and reword it, that's totally fine. We're talking about ideal. I've had a couple questions on how long a resume should be. Someone wanted to know if a resume should be short. I'm trying to find it right now. Sorry about that. We'll get back to it. We have a question about 1-year gaps on resumes for personal reasons. How should that be handled? Good question.
So I can start with this one because I have one of those gaps on my own personal resume. During 2020, I decided to be a stay-at-home mom. So you can say career break, and you can give your reason, personal reasons, took time off to take care of my child, or what your reason is, and whatever it is that you did during that time to keep yourself sharp, to build your acumen into going into your next role.
Perfect.
100%. That would, I like the term sabbatical as well too. When it comes to career break, especially if you have X number of years, let's say 10 or more years, you might have had to take a break for all sorts of matters. Taking care of children, taking care of a loved one, an elderly parent. There's a lot of reasonable reasons why people take breaks. You don't have to spill all your beans, so to speak, and tell everything that's on that thing, but acknowledge it. It's when it seems like people don't want to talk about it that I think there's a trust breakdown quickly with a hiring manager. Again, you don't have to get into all the details, but if it's missing on your resume and they catch it, they're like, I don't know if I like that very much. But if you at least acknowledge it in some soundbite or some print, it doesn't have to be too much detail. Acknowledging the gap is always a good thing, I suggest.
Absolutely.
Transparency is key. We are going to get back to Salim's question. I had further clarification. Thanks for your patience, everyone. So the situation is, how should a candidate respond in an interview once they find out it's a contract job and it wasn't in the job description before? So it sounds like the interviewer was not as transparent.
I think a good question that they could ask, state, okay, this is a contract position. I was under the impression it was permanent. However, if I were to be considered for this position as a contract employee, would there be potential for this to be contract to hire? Is there opportunity to become a permanent employee down the road?
Yes, I agree with that. And also, I would ask if there's, any benefits with the contract, because that might add to what you're looking for in the role. But definitely, is there potential to get hired on after? Is a main question that I prepare my contractors or tell them about a position.
Agreed with both points. Yeah, that would be that has some challenges. I think it is part of the tone of the interview that's going on. Was this an honest mistake, or was this, something that may not be as genuine? Somebody left something off, somebody missed something in a typo or something like that. Yeah, I mean, find out more details. What does that look like for me if we were to continue moving forward?
Absolutely. Asking questions is key. Dusty wants to know, if a job post shows that it's been posted for more than 30 days, should you still go ahead and reply? Love that question.
Yeah, I don't think it hurts to still apply, and then also maybe follow up with whoever the recruiter is or whoever the hiring manager is to see if it is still open. I don't think it hurts, but I see how there is some challenges, but just follow up to see if there's a recruiter or hiring manager to see if for sure if it's open.
Yeah, that's it can go either way. It could be one of those things that they are just truly struggling to find you as a candidate, and they are keeping it posted because the candidates that they've either interviewed or spoke with or haven't even bothered to speak with just yet, because they're just not finding that right person. I think asking questions to try and find out, go ahead and apply, try and find out, or it might, somebody forgot to take it down. It's really, that's a hard one. There's no, at least in my experience so far, I know I have jobs that have been out there for a little while right now because we just have not identified the right person. And we're still looking for you.
Great.
Absolutely. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
It could be. So I actually have some of those same types of roles where there's just a specialized need for the position. And when you don't have enough people in your market with that position, you try to find ways to be creative, but it does take time sometimes. And that's why you're going to see roles posted over 30 days.
That's good to know that they shouldn't be avoided. I think we see a lot of roles like that and automatically assume. So I do appreciate the insight. I'm going to go back to a question from Jackie. I really liked this one. What is the biggest mistake you see job seekers make on resumes that are hurting their chances the most?
That's a good question. Typos. That would be for me one of the things that I've heard multiple times throughout my career, that what will drive a hiring manager nuts is just obvious typos. They associate that with somebody that's not willing to take that extra step to kind of clean things up. Is this what it's going to look like when I get communications from you? This is how you're first presenting yourself. Slow down long enough to just do, and they're not talking about perfect grammar. I'm talking about blatantly mismatched typos, or just make sure your resume looks clean. And there's so many tools out there that will do it for you. It's one extra step, but if you're not willing to do that, they kind of wonder.
Yeah, I agree. I just make sure your resume looks clean is what I would agree with you. Is just make sure it's in a good format that looks clean and neat, and make sure, there's so many platforms out there that can check your grammar and everything like that. And also, as I mentioned kind of in my pro tip, it goes a long way to kind of tweak your resume for certain jobs. So if you just have the same resume and you're applying to all these different jobs, you might not stand out on a specific job that you're really looking for. So just make sure it's in a great template or a good format that you like, that's clean and readable.
Perfect. Quality over quantity. I think that's a really good note to leave this on. We are out of time for today. Thank you so much to everyone who commented. We had great questions. And don't forget to follow System One on LinkedIn if you're not already. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can view this episode and other past episodes of Sound Off with System One on YouTube. And make sure you tune in every first and third Friday at 2 p.m. for more job seeker topics. Our next live stream will be on Friday, October 17th at 2 p.m. And we'll be discussing how to use AI to land your next opportunity. See you then.